Keith Dietzen, who usually kind of kicks us off. He is not able to make it today. But today we're going to take a look at the latest release for SmartBuild, and we call this 1.93. And we'll go over the new stuff in here. I'm going to do a demonstration, and I'm just going to show you the new stuff, show you how it works. I won't get super deep into anything, but at the end, we'll open it up for any questions you have about any of these new items or anything else that you want to get into. While I'm going through this, we ask you to stay on mute, and you can send in your questions via the chat feature, which you should have somewhere on your screen. Everybody's screen seems to be a little bit different, but if you click on the chat, you send one in. Paul, Royden, some other people here at SmartBuild will keep an eye on that for me. And if there's something we need to cover right away, then we can jump on that question, or we can save it up to the end. Or if you have questions in the end, we'll open it up. You can unmute and jump in, and we can just have any kind of a discussion that we need to get into. Okay, we'll get kicked off here. The big thing in this release are the dormers. So for those of you who like to do dormers, who've been asking for dormers, we finally were able to get this into the program. As you'll see, we're going to have some additional work to do on the dormers. And I'll go over that. So I'm just going to jump into this job that I've been working on, just kind of a demo job. So I'm going to open this up. It's going to load in the 3D model. It's going to load in all the materials and the pricing for this job. So this is just a demonstration job that I've kind of been working on here. You can see I do have one already in here, a dormer. And we'll just jump right in here to the dormers. And I'll just kind of show you how to input these and a few of the details about them, and then we can talk more about these at the end if we need to get into them more. But we do have the dormer option up here, pretty similar to the way attached buildings and the porches and things go in. All of these are actually optional per user. So if you don't want people using this dormer feature, we can turn that off through security. If you don't want e-modeler people to use the dormers, this is something that we can hide. Basically, this button just isn't here. So that's something we can do. That's going to be in the user settings. And if you have like an administrator of SmartBuild, they can do that, or you can call our support line and we can help you turn that off. I believe this is going to be on by default. So to get to the dormer input, we just click on this dormer button here. It's going to pull up something very similar to the attached buildings. And then we'll just walk through how this actually gets input. Very similar to attached buildings, the start is going to be from the left of the building. So if I come over here and hover, it's going to show me what we have right now. So this distance here is going to be 8 foot. I don't have any overhangs on here, so it's going to be from the exterior of the framing 8 foot over to the exterior of the framing of this dormer. So if we want that to be somewhere else, like if we want to do 5, we can put that in as 5. This width is going to be, as you'll see, I'll change that to 45. That's going to be coming across this way. So it starts 5, runs 45 across. This offset is going to be up from the edge of this sidewall here, from the framing to the framing of the dormer. Right now I have this at 2 foot. That's going to be 2 foot. If we put in 1 foot, that's going to be 1 foot. You can put in 0 here, and that's just going to put it right up against the flush with the sidewall. Right now, that is not going to combine those walls, so that's something we might want to talk about. You can put it flush, but it's not going to combine those two walls at this point. They're going to be like separate walls. I think I'm going to pull this back 2 feet. So I'll pull that back up 2 feet there up on the roof. The height here is going to be the height from this location where this wall is hitting the roof up to the top of this front wall of the dormer. So right now we have this at 6 foot. And maybe I'll try to bump this up to 8 foot. I have this big 12 pitch roof to work with here, and we'll keep it at the gable roof style. As you notice on this other end, I have a shed roof. So you can do different types of roofs, just like you can with the main buildings. Yeah, so you can go into advanced and you can mess around with some other roof styles if you want. I'm going to keep it a gable, you know, typical here with the roof pitch. You can change up the roof pitch. Maybe I'll do 2. You can do overhangs, trusses or rafters. Maybe I'll switch over to rafters. And then similar to the porches, as you go to advance, you know, we can do things like change up the rafter materials in this case. We do have the ability to drop the end rafter now. That's actually something that's new in this release. For those of you interested, like last time we did a full drop of the gable truss. So you could completely drop that gable truss with flush purlins, and you could run the purlins over the top of those. This time we allow you to drop a rafter. Same way you could fully drop that gable end rafter and have like the purlins run over the top. So you could do that for the main building or for porches. So that's something new. Some of you do use that. So I'll just point that out. You can do the drop or no drop for rafters now too, for that end kind of gable rafter. And then the rest of these, you know, is going to be typical to the rafter roof. In this case, it'd be trusses. If we select the trusses, you can put on ceilings for these dormers. We will take a look at some of the framing and some of the details of these in a second here. Some limitations, but you can put ceilings on at this point, and you have your typical ceiling settings. So very similar to attached buildings, you can go through here, kind of put in this kind of information according to what you want it to be. And I'll say we're good here. So to get this onto the building, we just click on that roof. You can put these on attached buildings as well. So we could put it on the other side of this roof. If there wasn't already a dormer there, we could put it onto any sort of attached buildings that we have as well. So now we have this dormer here, and we'll just we'll call this good. And I guess before we start putting some openings on here, I'll take a look at the framing. Now, one of the limitations that we have right now, this room is not actually being opened up. It's just sitting on top of the roof at this point. So that's something that we're going to need to work on for the future. Some ways right now, this is really a visual, but there is some framing involved here, as you can see. This framing is using the exterior stud frame settings. So these are just automatically using these settings here. So these are going to control any sort of exterior stud frame walls that you may have, but they are controlling the dormer walls at this point as well. So if we wanted to change up the spacing, this is where we could come and do that. You can set these up as defaults. So I changed that to 24, so we'll see that update here. You can also do advanced edit on these. So these are going to control all those walls, but you can also come into the advanced edit and you can click on any of these walls, and you can manipulate the sheathing or the trim, or you can come into the framing. And so you can come in here and do things like maybe you don't want these girts to come on. They're going to just show up right now automatically. So you might have to come in here and do some manipulation of stuff. We could say none, or maybe we could do commercial and kind of get some blocking in there. But you could completely get rid of those. We could also, really, you could get rid of all the framing in this wall if you wanted to. If you go to the exterior stud framing, if you wanted to say none for this framing, you could get rid of this if you have some alternative that you want to do for some of the framing or the wall materials. But I made that one change there to put the commercial girts in. It'll kind of give us some blocking. But so you can come in here for any of these walls, for any of the dormer walls, and do advanced edit on these individually as well. Okay, so now I have a couple dormers here, and you can put openings into these. So similar kind of process as we've had in the past. If I click on type of window, we can just pick one of these. Couple things to point out here. One, this header height right now I think is acting a little bit funny. And so one thing I should point out here, I am working on the beta site. So this is kind of our testing site that we put the latest code on before we release it out to you or out to the world. And so we are going to leave this on beta, these latest changes, for another week. So you do have a week. If you go to the beta site, it's really your same website that you use, but if you put beta in front of this address, it will take you to the beta site and you can log in just like you can log into your other site. And you just have to be careful because you are working on beta. This is not, this is kind of testing. It's not going to transfer over to your live site if you're doing real jobs, but you can come in here and play around with this, make sure things were working. And we do strongly suggest that just because there's so many different options and different ways that people use this. Probably no one uses this exactly the same way you do. And so it might make sense to come in here and just look at a couple jobs and just do kind of a sanity check. That would help us. We try to do the best that we can with the testing, but there's just so much. So you can come on here. This is on beta. It'll be here for another week. We do run into things like this head height right here. It says 6'8". What we wanted it to do is to be 6'8" from the bottom of this dormer wall. This is not 6'8" from the bottom of that dormer wall because this, I believe I did, is 6 foot. So this is something that is actually a known issue that we're working on. We want to get this so that the header height is going to be from the bottom of this dormer wall. I think right now what it's using is the top of that sidewall here, which, if that makes more sense to people, let us know. We can kind of tweak these things. The way that we're doing it, we want to do it right now is we want to do this by this front wall. So anyway, this is going to be a little bit off, but you can manipulate this head height just like you can with the other windows. You can change up where that goes. With our stud frame walls, the placement of these gets a little bit funky because it's really, we built this for the post frame input, and we have some work that we have to do to make it a little bit easier. It's only giving me 3 options here to place these windows, but I can click on these, and then we can, I'm just going to place these, and then we can manipulate these. So you might have to mess around with these a little bit more than you want to at this point. We will clean this up. And so we'd probably come in here and maybe we'd do something like change these up, and we could add some more in here. So a little bit of manipulation, probably a little bit more than I'd like at this point, but we will clean this up. But you can put in the openings in here. And we are in the beta site. It's running a little bit slower than what you have on the live side. This maybe, you know, from the right, maybe we would do 5, and then this one we could center. So really that is kind of the input side here. Maybe we'd center this one. So you're going to get some framing for it. If this opens up into a full room, that is probably going to take some manipulation at this point. You could potentially, I do have some interior walls here. I could get rid of this roof. And if you do get rid of that roof, it's going to get rid of the dormers right now. It's just going to be part of the roof in terms of this visibility. And let us know how that works. That might be something where we have a separate toggle visibility for the dormers. Right now, if you click on this roof button down here, it'll kind of walk through. You can see that floor disappeared there. And then if we click it on again, it'll bring back this roof. But maybe we want to start with getting rid of the dormers and then the roof. Right now, that visibility is just going to turn off with the roof. But, you know, some of you I know will get pretty creative with stuff. You could put some interior walls in here that could represent a room. And you could go into advanced edit and potentially, you know, turn off some of this framing, say on the side, and kind of do some manipulation there with those interior walls in combination. In the future, we'll make this easier. We're also not cutting out the metal at this point. Underneath here, something to keep in mind, that metal is underneath there. That is something that we need to work on as well. The other piece that we need to give you some more tools is related to the outputs. So right now, these outputs, on the outputs, you know, we do have some framing. Whatever we're seeing here in the 3D model is going to be on our material list. The elevations are going to show these, but we don't have anything in the cross sections right now. The other thing that we do have lined up for sure to do in the next release is getting some tokens and things for the documents, as well as for doing some you know, assemblies and package calculations. So things like the number of dormers would be something you could use in a calculation to calculate some materials, square foot of these dormer walls. We will have a list of the dormers to put onto like quote documents, very similar to the way that we do attached buildings and kind of door and window lists, where we list those out on documents. So right now, it's really going to be this visual that you're getting, this input. It's going to be the materials that you see in the 3D model, and the manipulation that you can do in advanced edit and with interior walls. And then coming up in the very near future is going to be these tokens and square footage information, things that you can use to create package and assembly calculations for materials, and also to get them onto your documents. So for right now, for this release, it's going to be what you see here. So something to kind of play around with. It's going to be the visual, and you know, the way that we like to do things, for better or for worse, is to get these out there and let you guys use them in a way that's valuable to you, but probably not exactly what you want. And then we will get these things going in the future. And so we will get into cutting these panels and some other details of the framing. So anything that you guys have, please let us know as you're working with these and working through these, and we'll have some more updates and changes coming out in the near future, and probably a few releases down the road. So yeah, we will continue to work on these. I think that's maybe everything that I want to cover right now with these. Yeah. So again, it is using these exterior stud framing, and then the wall girt framing. Those girts are showing up from this wall girt framing. And maybe that'll transition into the next thing that I want to talk about here. So we'll leave dormers there. We can get into those more coming up here if you want to. While I'm talking about the girts, we did make a change to how these girts get laid out. And what is happening now in this release of the software coming up is your girt spacing is going to be based off of the top of the skirt board. And so whatever your spacing is, it's going to be from the top of the skirt board to the top of the first girt. And that's just the way it's going to work. So right now, for 2 foot is from the top of the skirt board to the top of the skirt. If you move the skirt board around, which you can do, you can change how it's aligned, and you can do an offset here, up or down from grade. Then this 2 foot to the top is going to follow that. And maybe I'll hit save here. We'll take a quick look at the cross section for this, though I think we do have a beta item potentially, but you'll see that in a second here. So I'll just pull this up and just show real quick what the girt spacing looks like on the cross section. So that downloads. I'm going to make sure to share this. So I'll share that. Something that we're working on here with this 12-12 roof and these parallel core trusses that I'm using. But if we come down to this wall here, and I'll zoom in maybe a little bit here, but you can just see real quick that if you can see, that's the top of the skirt board there. That in my case is just sitting right on top of grade. And then from the top of that to the top of this first girt is 2 foot. And then you can see it's just going to continue up 2 foot. The other thing about this, if we turn on wainscot, I'll just do that real quick and show you what happens here. The way that this is working right now in this 1.93 release is it's going to keep that 2 foot on center girt, even if you have this wainscot, because I have a wainscot backer girt here, a 2x6 at 3 foot, but it is keeping this girt at 2 foot from the top of the skirt board, and then this one's 2 foot from this on center girt as well. If you want to get rid of that, you can go to the wall girt framing, and if you want to skip the girts below the wainscot, some people do, you can turn this on, and then it is going to start to use the top of this wainscot girt, I believe, and do 2 foot on center from there. So right now, that's the way that is working. I know that people, we know people want more control over these, where you could do some custom spacing and do some things differently, and that is something we have on the list and we're kind of working on. That one takes quite a bit more changes to the code in the background. So this is something that we wanted to get in as some kind of cleanup. If you
John,
don't like,
can you hear me?
No? Yes, sir.
We've lost video.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that makes me go back here and have to reshare that screen, so I'll do that. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, that's better. Okay. It was about a minute that you've been off. So
okay,
if you were showing something important, you might want to redo that.
Yep. My bad. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so what I was saying here is if you turn on wainscot, which I did, um, I have my wainscot backer at 3 foot, and so I have this wainscot gird 2x6 right here at 3 foot. I still have this gird at 2 foot on center, or 2 foot from the top of the skirt board, and then 2 foot here. So it's still keeping that even with the wainscot. You can turn off those girts below the wainscot backer. And if you do that, it's going to use the top of this wainscot for that 2 foot on center. So we'll see here once I switch that. It does bump that up. And so now it's kind of using that wainscot. So just FYI, that's kind of how that works. If you don't have the wainscot, it's just going to be, in my case, 2 foot on center from the top of the skirt board. And if you move that skirt board, it's going to move that on center. If you have the wainscot, it's going to keep doing that unless it interferes with this wainscot backer. If you turn those off, the wainscot girts below, then it's going to start using 2 foot from here. So that's how that works. Let us know if that's not what you want. And like I said, we do have plans to give you more control over these girts and get into some custom spacing, but that's going to be some more work for us to do. So that's that with the Girt spacing change. Okay, now we're going to get into a couple other changes here related to trusses. One of them being, we are now going to show you kind of a fake web pattern of the trusses when these actually match up with the truss in your catalog. And in this case, I don't actually have any trusses from my catalog that are matching. So we're going to keep the same orange just block that you're kind of used to. So if I go into the job review for the materials and go over to the trusses, maybe think we're probably looking at these, but maybe I'll go over here real quick. Or actually I'll go to the drawings here, look at this truss layout. So we have these T5s over here. So yeah, that's those there that are not matching exactly. I found something close in my catalog. And so it just has those close matches. So it's orange. So this is still going to work the same way. Those are going to be orange in the 3D model. But if it finds something in your catalog, you're going to get some webbing. And in this case, I'm just going to add these to my catalog. Looks like I just have a different heel height. And I don't have any overhangs right now, so I don't have anything in my catalog with this heel and with no overhangs. But we're going to just add those to the truss table. So I can just add those directly to my truss catalog by clicking on that button. Just going to add them exactly. I do have to hit refresh. And then it's going to go and actually look in my catalog and it's going to find this truss in the catalog because I just added it. And now if we go back here, we should see, okay, so now these have gone from this orange to kind of more of a web, an actual truss web with cords and stuff. This is not real. This is just for a visual. So if you do have these in your catalog, that would be true with these as well. There's kind of crazy trusses that I have here for this 12-12 roof to demonstrate the dormers. But any truss that you have that's matching in your catalog, when you get this release next week, you are going to see these web patterns come in instead of the orange. If these trusses are not being found in your catalog, you're still going to get this orange. So that's the way that we're doing this. We just had requests. People want to see these webs instead of the orange. Just a little bit better visual. Realize, obviously, these are not design trusses. These are not real webs. So something to just be careful of, or just keep in mind, I guess. If you want to see something different, let us know. I mean, we could have all trusses just come in like this, even if they're not matched. We thought it was a good cue that these aren't being matched in your catalog, but if you'd rather just always see these, I mean, that's something we can do. We can change that based on your feedback. So let us know what you think about that. Yeah, so that's going to be a change coming up. The other change that we made in this release related to the trusses has to do with the overhangs. And in this case, I don't have any overhangs. And I'll probably just explain this. And this is something that we'll probably need to go look in the truss catalog real quick. But the basic idea is you can have a single truss with all of the properties kind of that go along with these trusses, like the pitch and the heel, and the loading that goes along with it, and the length of it or the width of it, all the different things that go into matching up these trusses. And one of those things is the overhang. So right now the way it works is there is one truss that has all the characteristics of whatever this truss is in this building with the pitch and the slope. And if it's a 1 foot overhang, I have a truss that matches up with a 1 foot overhang. And that's true for both the left and the right side. You can have trusses with different overhangs on different sides, which gets into this advanced. What we've done, due to requests that people have had, is you can have a truss that could match up on everything else, the slope, and the width and everything else, and you can have it match for any of these overhangs that you choose. So it doesn't matter if you choose a 6-inch overhang, a 2 foot overhang, or if you have a 3 foot overhang, any range of overhangs that you can have a single truss in your catalog that it'll select it based on a range of these overhangs. And so no matter what you pick here, it's going to pick that truss, whether it's 1 foot overhang or 2 foot. And so, some people I know will do overhangs out in the field. And so they don't really care what the overhang is exactly. So you could have 0 to 100 in here, and pretty much any overhang, it's just going to pick the same truss. So if you do field overhangs, this is one way to handle that. Also, if you want to just reduce the size and you have a different way of specifying that overhang, you can just have a single truss for all of your overhangs. So in this case, we could potentially just have one truss to represent 1, 2, 3, 4 different items in the truss catalog. So could reduce your truss catalog, and then if you do field overhangs, this could be one way to help you handle that. And getting into the truss catalog is a little bit tricky. We'll take a quick look at it. If it's something that you do want to do and you don't feel comfortable with it, or you haven't done the truss catalog, manipulating that database, give us a call at support and we can help you with that. Or we can set up a time to have one of us meet with you specifically and help you go through that. Trying to think what else we might want to look at in here before we jump out. If you're using the cantilever porches, I'm not going to go too deeply in the cantilever porches, but you can do cantilevers, where you can basically have a porch that kind of gets inset here as a cantilever where the trusses can run over the top of it. One thing that we did in this case is we did add a square foot of cantilever porch token. So that's just going to be the square footage of the cantilever porch itself. It's going to give you that number of the square footage for any given job with one of the tokens. For either on documents, you could give the square footage, or you can use that in a calculation. So I know we've had some people asking, want to do some potentially labor calculations based on square footage of cantilevers, or any other materials that you may want to use square footage for. So that's in here now. Like I mentioned, we did do the full drop on the gable trusses last time. We did the drop of the end rafters in this release, and we did some cleanup associated with that. I know that there's kind of a subset of people who will use those full drops and drop those rafters with the flush purlins. If you have any questions on those, give our support a call and we can get into those in detail. I'll just mention those right now because I think decent portion of you probably don't do that. So we sent out a list of release notes with this. There's a whole bunch of bug fixes that we've done as well, doing some cleanup on bug fixes. Maybe I'll just mention some of those real quick. One big one for some people who've had issues with this, when you re-quote a job, so we have these job statuses that you can walk a job through. You can make it a quote, you can make it an order, you can re-quote it. With the requote, the way that we had to handle it in the background is we did advanced edit changes on everything in that requote. So every wall had advanced edit changes on it when you requoted it, even if you didn't do that. And that would cause problems because you might try to change some settings and the advanced edit would just override the settings that you try to make to the main building. We have fixed that in this release so that those advanced edits just don't get placed. So now you can requote a job and it's just going to act like any other job. So I know some of you have run into that. You really weren't requoting due to that. So if that's was holding you up, then that's something that you can do with this release if you want to. We are going to add a new contracted status coming up. We've had a request for contracted. So that's going to come when something has been quoted and it's been, and the contract's been signed, but it's not ready to be ordered. So it's going to be a step in between quoted and ordered that you can have from a contract. That'll be coming up next time. Yeah, there's a whole list of bugs here. I would just take a look at those. If any of those are ones you've been looking for, then this should jump out at you. If you have any questions on any of these, you can give us a call. I'm not going to go through all these. It's going to take too much time. We're kind of running out of time here anyway. So a lot of bug fixes. Next time, like I mentioned, we will definitely be getting into some of those dormer tokens and some of the square footage, the number of dormers, things that you can use on your outputs and for calculations of materials. We're going to do some more bug fixes that we have. We have a bit of a refactor we need to do for the post placement, especially with combined walls. We have to kind of change up a little bit how this these post logic in the background for the code that gets placed. So we have a little bit of work to do there. We are going to continue with these dormers. So again, any feedback you have, please let us know. And we are thinking about some bigger projects that we have that just take longer than sprints. We still are working on outputs. We will have some output changes come up in the next release. And we do have kind of some solutions that are going on in the background. We have some big projects like stairs that we want to get to. We want to do things like gutters. So we have a lot of big projects, a lot of things that are happening in the background. Please keep your feedback coming in because those do influence like when and how we work on things. But I think that is pretty much going to be it for what I wanted to cover here. Thank you all for sitting through that. Thank you for working with us here at SmartBuild. At this point, unless anybody at SmartBuild has anything else you think that we need to share here, we'll just open it up for questions. Anything on this new stuff, anything on future priorities, anything on other questions or things that are bothering you. Yeah, so we'll just open it up. Paul, did you have anything come in the chat? Paul, you still out there? You guys hear me? Anybody hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Sean.
Okay.
Where Paul is.
Can you
It
hear me
looks
now?
like Duncan has a couple questions. One of them is actually a pretty good thing. I don't think we've heard before. But Duncan asked about if there was an easier way or a different way we could store jobs, like making instead of just having a flat job list, you can maybe make some folders to, for maybe you just do jobs for a certain customer. You can put all those jobs under one folder.
Yeah, just email me those pictures if you don't mind.
Yes, we do want to kind of refactor this whole job list and make it a lot easier to search on things that are in jobs, to filter this list, by certain customers. That is a project that we have on our list. It requires a pretty decent amount of refactoring and there's a lot of work that goes into it, but that's definitely something we want to do. If you have ideas, write up an email, send them in to us, and we'll work those into the design of this refact. So that is definitely something we've heard, and that's something we want to do.
Runs a job list. I'll do a lot is archive their jobs. So, Sean, you're looking at a job list of 419 jobs. I bet you're not working on all of those jobs at the same time, right? I completed last year or over the spring. So what you could do is with older jobs that are finished or leads that you never got, you can just highlight them or highlight a whole section and hit the Make Archive button. And that'll send those jobs to a different list. So really your only things on your active job list are leads that you're pursuing or projects you're currently working on. And once that job is done or that lead is dead, you can mark it archived. It's always available on archived. If you want to get it back, you can make it active again. But that's one way to clean up that job list. Another way that people have organized it, if you are one of those companies and you might have several different customers that you do a lot of jobs for separate customers, you could use the feature that we call builders. And again, you would have to email us and ask for that request for that feature to be turned on. But we're going to charge you for each seat or each person that's using the website. But if it's still just like you using the website and you want different areas for different customers that you have, you can set up different builders, which are kind of like copy databases, and then you can manage your jobs that way through the builders portal. And then there's a filter up at the top, so you can filter by which builder the job belongs to. So, like Sean says, there's a lot of good refactors that are coming for the job list. I like the idea of maybe doing folders, but until then, we do have some tools that you could use. So I think here we call them distributors, but in other places, and you could do custom. You could basically for each builder that you have, you could just do a job in their area, and then it would get tagged with that distributor.
Yeah, those are good suggestions.
As far as there was a question about soffits and under cant porches, I think that's still being worked on. So you can do maybe a cant porch with a ceiling without having to do a ceiling on your entire building.
Yeah. That's another big project in a way, to have these different wings or different buildings, and you can separate those out with different materials and different calculations.
Okay. Yep. And then maybe we'll need to look at the foundation for a cant porch as well. That's a good point. Looks like Chad has a question about attic trusses on the radar. That is on the radar for sure. We've had a few meetings and talked about what to do with an attic truss and how to show that area. So right now, no. If you pick an attic truss and it matches with the truss in your catalog, we're going to give you webbing for that truss, but that webbing is not going to identify where the attic area is.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. That's not going to show visually in the 3D model right now at all. Even with
Right.
these new.
So the fact that we have something called an attic truss is just so you can put a different price on that truss.
Yep.
Nothing in the 3D model yet. But
Yep.
it looks like with this model right here, Sean, it might be good to have some attic trusses and those dormers and really open up that space, that bonus room.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, definitely something we've thought about. We do have some plans for that. It's just one of those things that's on the list.
All right. Yep. The questions are coming in now. So I think stuff that is on the list as well, ability to select a different interior truss carrier versus a truss carrier on the outside. I'm not sure if we have that ability yet or not. We might have that.
What is that?
Sorry, they want a different product from the exterior truss carrier to the interior truss carrier. So maybe 2x12 on the outside and a 2x10 on the inside of the building, but it'd still be a double truss carrier. I'm not sure if we had that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So on the same wall. For a second, I was thinking interior walls, but so if you have a double truss carrier, so like in this situation here, you'd have a different material on the outside from the inside. So yeah, we do have that for like the girt headers, the in-out girt headers. You can have different materials on the inside and the outside, but not for the truss carrier. So yep, that's a good one. It is on the list. That one's a little bit easier to do. So that's something we could think about bumping up on the list. So that's a good one. I'll definitely take a note. The other thing,
and then it looks like Megan's got a request for adding a height to a camp porch. So maybe you can, instead of being open all the way to the truss, you can frame it down a little bit. So maybe it's a porch on the corner of your building, but you don't want your porch roof or your porch ceiling to match your building ceiling. You know, you want it to be a little bit lower, but it's still a camp porch. So kind of I think, Sean, that would go to that soffit and ceiling area, covering the camp porch. This would be like a little frame. You'd be able to frame down the camp porch, make the ceiling lower.
It's like a drop ceiling. So it's the framing for like that drop ceiling.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, we might need to get some more details on that.
So yeah, Megan, again, if you don't mind just putting in a support ticket and kind of just, copy and paste what you put in there. All these chats do get saved though in the log for the webinar, so we can go back and revisit them. Okay, and then Mike's asking about a different truss carriers through advanced edit. So Mike, I don't know if you mean different truss carriers from outside to inside of wall, like we were just talking, or across the wall, you might want to, on the left side of the wall, you might want a large truss carrier, and then on the right side, you might want a smaller truss carrier. So need a little bit more information.
This is probably what Megan's talking about.
Yeah, being able to frame that ceiling down lower.
Okay, so what was that last one, Brendan? I'm sorry, I missed that one.
No, that's okay. It was about selecting different truss carriers in advanced edit. Here we go, Mike. Thank you. Okay. Yep. So Mike was just making the point that maybe we have a feature on advanced edit, Sean, where we can do, hey, interior truss carrier versus exterior truss carrier, and make them different.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right. Okay. Yep. I think that's more of the point. But it does sound like they want control over if you have a 2-ply truss carrier, a 2-ply header at the top of your wall, want some control on what those 2 products are.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, great feedback, guys. Thank you.
I'd like to.
So yeah, definitely questions about soffit and cantilever. And then you did mention, Sean, that we have projects working on the outputs. So if you're doing outputs now where the walls are a little scrambled up and you can't read them, we hopefully have some solutions available soon for that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, somebody
So,
jumping in there.
Another thing on truss carriers. So we typically, our trusses, we set on 8-foot centers, so they are on top of the post. So we're just using a single truss carrier, and I can't use the span tables for truss carriers because there's not a single option in span tables.
Right.
Span tables uses only 2, 3, or 4 plies, and so I can't use span tables and a single truss carrier at the same time.
Yep, very, very good point. And the other one that we hear a lot with span tables is for stud frame walls. So like if you want to do your headers, design your headers for a stud frame wall and an exterior wall, you also can't do that via the span tables just yet. So I think single truss carriers and stud frame. I think those should, if they're not on the list already, Sean, should get them on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll make sure they are. Okay.
Do you guys, what do you guys think about the truss web stuff? We've been asked a long time to show more realistic trusses, and even though, like Sean pointed out, the webs aren't really what your truss webbing is going to be, do you guys like the fact that we're showing something that looks more like a real truss? Do you think your customers will appreciate that? Okay, awesome.
I think it looks great.
Cool. Yep, and we'll get some more feedback when this goes live, and we may, improve it so that we're not showing any orange trusses at all at some point. So, all right, I didn't see any no's to the truss webbing, Sean, so that's a good sign.
Okay. Yep.
All right, awesome. Well, hey, thank you everybody for joining, and Sean and his team will keep plugging away on making the software better, and the support team and myself will keep answering your questions and helping you out with the new features.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks, everybody. Once again, this will come out in about a week. You'll see this live, so you do have time to go in and play around with this on beta. If you have any questions about getting on beta, let us know through support, or you can send us emails if you have our emails, or give us a call. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.